And take it away, ladies. There's a microphone in each chair. And yeah, thank you for coming. We're so excited to have you.
Well, that introduction was amazing. So thank you. And I feel that to my core about looking at a date and saying, oh, when? When is this going to happen? I mean, me personally, I am going through a move of my house and not sure, trusting the Lord, not sure where he's going to take me. So currently I'm packing everything for storage and going to my mama's house, which is great, except for I haven't lived with anybody in 25 years besides my daughter. And then I have a trip coming up on Tuesday where I'm going to New York for 5 days to see my family. And you name it. What else? I don't know. And then, but we've been praying for an opportunity like this for a year. And when this came up, I was like, ooh, what do we do? And God just reminded me, you don't have to have all the details, Melissa. I have the details. You don't have to have a plan. I have a plan. And you have to do what I've called you to do. You have to do what I've created you for. So I said, Janice, say yes. We're going to say yes because God told us to say yes. So thank you so much for having us. And we are so excited to come and talk to you and see where the Spirit leads. Can we pray first? Okay. God, we thank you so much for your plan. We might not know what tomorrow brings or what the rest of the day brings, what a minute brings, but we know that you are in control and we are not. God, we thank you for everything. We thank you for your provision over our lives, for what you do for us. But God, I just think back to the very beginning of when we were created in our mother's womb. And I think of how perfect you created us to be. And then we were born into the sinful world. And that's when the thief, the small god of this world, tries to steal our identity. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I just pray that you would be with us. Our words would be glorifying and edifying to you. And that you would just fill us and fill these women and help us to speak words that they need to hear. And I'm sure they're going to say things that we need to hear as well. But God, in all of it, we know that your Spirit commands us. And you have the authority over our lives to do what you will do. Because we can have all these plans, but you guide our steps. And we thank you so much for that.
Yes, Lord, thank you so much for just bringing us here today, because I know that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And
yes,
we are going to learn just as much from these beautiful women as they're going to learn from us, because we are all in this together. So, Lord, I just pray that you would open our eyes, our hearts, and our minds to the things that you need us to know, and let those ears hear whatever the Spirit is saying, and let us understand as only you can make us understand. In your name, we thank you and we praise you always. Amen.
Amen. So, we want to, we want to be authentic and genuine, and we're going to let the Spirit lead in everything that we talk about today. And it's kind of like a conversation, right? Like,
that's how we've always done things.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk at you. We just want to involve you if you want to be involved. We love to talk about perspectives because everybody has one. And sometimes we need to see other people's perspectives to understand.
That's how we grow. Like, we have testimonies. We all go through certain things, and hearing how I go through something is very different from the way Janice goes through something. It's probably very different from the way you go through things, but that's how we grow. That's how the Spirit leads us, and we have to be guided by that. So, yeah. I mean, that's definitely one thing that we've learned over this past year. When I personally started to take this ministry really seriously, our first step was, well, my first step was to quit my worldly job. Okay, I'm going to back up a little bit because, so I moved across the states to Illinois 14 years ago, and I wasn't saved. And I didn't have a relationship with God. I knew who God was, but like I didn't really know who God was. And so here I am, a single mom, thousands of miles away from my family and my friends. I didn't know anybody. I had a boyfriend at the time, and of course I wasn't saved, and I was with him, and it was just like he didn't treat me the way I thought I was supposed to be treated. I was like, pretty sure that you're not allowed to talk to me like that, and I'm done. So it was one day he came home from work. He came up the stairs and he said, I hate coming home to you. That's what he said. And I said, yeah, that's not going to happen. You're not going to talk to me like that. And so my daughter was 7, and I said to her, I didn't know anybody. I'd lived here for 4 months. And I said to her, I said, you know what? Go in your room, get a couple toys, or get your shoes on. Go get your shoes on. We're going to the park. So we went to the park. I had literally one friend here in Illinois, and she was in Girl Scouts, and my one friend happened to be her Girl Scout leader, and I called her, and it happened to be her anniversary, and I said, can you pick me up? And, I'm crying a little bit. And I said, can you pick me up? I can't go back to my house. And she said, what? You don't even know any, what? Are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm positive. Meanwhile, a week before that, I totaled my car, so I didn't even have a car. And so she picked me up, and I went back to her house, and I had a really, really part-time job. And I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this. I knew my original call was to be a mom. I didn't have a relationship with God, like I said, but I knew that I had to be the best mom that I could be. And so I stayed with her. I continued to go to work, and then happened to be a week prior to that, we paid for my daughter to go to Girl Scout camp for a week. She's going away, and this is the first time she's going to be away from mom, and she's only like 7. And so she's nervous. I'm nervous because my life is now changing, and my daughter's also leaving me. So I'm like, okay, but I knew that she had to go because I had some stuff that I had to get done. And so I said, it's going to be okay. This is going to be the best time of your life. You're going to have so much fun. And she did, because she continued to go for 14 years after that. So and sometimes she would go for like 2 weeks at a time. And she'd be like, see ya, Mom. Like the first time I dropped her off, she's like, Mom, I don't want to go. I don't want to stay here. And then the second time, and then I just assured her she was going to have so much fun, whatever. And then the second time she went, she's like, okay, Mom, see ya. I'm like, okay. But then I came to love those times where she was gone for a week at a time. But at this particular moment, I was like, okay, I have to make a decision. And so she went to camp. I dropped her off, and I came back home. In that time, I knew she was gone for a week, and I had stuff to do. I had to get a car, so I got a car. I had to get a new job. I got a new job. I had to get a new home. I got a new home. And my ex-boyfriend said to me, he said, I'm pretty sure you should go back to across the country, back to New York, where you're from. And I was like, I'm pretty sure you don't get to tell me what to do. So anyway, so all of this stuff happened. I got this job, and I got the car, and I got a new home, and then life started to happen, and I was like, well, I'm pretty sure I didn't do that on my own. So when my daughter came home, we went for a walk, and I'll never forget this. Like, she was the curious little 7-year-old. She picks up this rock, and she gives it to me, and she says, Mom, what does this say? And it was Jeremiah 29:11. For you don't know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper and grow you, not to harm you. And I was like, I don't know what this means, but I know I didn't just do all that stuff by myself. So then, like, the next week, we went to church, and it's history, you know, and history, like his story, right? And then she, you know, and then I hear God whisper. He started the whisper, and he said, you know, I need you to share this. And I said, I don't want to do that. What do you mean, share this? And he's like, there's people that need to hear your story, Melissa, and I need you to share it because I did this for you. You didn't do this by yourself. I did this for you. And I said, yes, God, you did do this for me, but I don't want to share it. And so he's like, just give it a chance. And I was like, well, what do I have to lose? Because I've done everything else on my own, and look where it's gotten me. You know, and I was like, okay. So then I got involved in a church, and I started to go to church every Monday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, like every day of the week. And I started to really build that relationship with him, because there is a relationship, not religion, right? And he said to me, he's like, Melissa, I never left you. I'm going to be with you always. I'm going to be with you while you raise your daughter. You raise her the way I tell you to raise her. You listen to me every step of the way. And everything that the world is telling you, everything that the world is telling you that you can't accomplish or that she can't accomplish, Melissa, they're wrong. They're wrong, because I created you and I created her. So, Melissa, I need you to go back to your original identity and your original call. And what is that? That's who I have created you to be. I think that sometimes we always put these identity things on ourselves, and we start to create our own identity. We start to create, like, who the world tells us that we're supposed to be, you know? But the original thing, the original call is who God tells us to be. And so I think when we first enter this world is when identity theft happens. When we think of identity, what do we think? When we think of identity theft, what do we think of? You know, it's like the definition is, you know, just like when somebody steals your personal belongings, like your social security number. And then I think of our original social security number, and that's our fingerprints. Nobody can steal that from us. Nobody can steal our hearts. Nobody can steal our souls. It's our job to guard them. It's our job to, the Bible even says, guard your heart, you know? And so I think of all of that stuff. And I did continue to live the way God wanted me to live and figure it out and just be very sensitive to him. And now I can happily say that my daughter is in her senior year of college, and she's going into her doctorate program next year. And she's double majoring. So it's incredible. I mean, because the world tells you, like, no, Melissa, she's a single mom home. Come on. That's not even gonna happen. Like that's what the world tells you. You can do a quick Google search and they tell you all the failures that you're gonna have, and you're not gonna be capable of doing any of this stuff. But when God's on your side, you can do it all. Like if you ask Him to help you, I mean, there's plenty of times where I said, God, I don't know what to do. I need you to help me. I need you to tell me. I need you to guide me. I need you to direct me. I need you to tell me. And so then just fast forward to here I am 15 years later, and God said, okay, are you ready for the next step? And the next step was quitting my job, my worldly job, and coming into full-time ministry. So that's where we are. And so that's why earlier when I said, yeah, I don't know what's happening, and I even said that a year ago to God. I was like, God, I don't know what's happening. I don't know. You want me to quit my job now? I don't even have a plan. And that's when He said, you don't need to have a plan, Melissa. I have a plan. It's actually a good thing that you don't have a plan, because I have a plan. If you have a plan, it was going to get in the way from everything that I need you to do. So, yeah. I don't even know why I just shared all that, because I wasn't going to, but if it helps somebody, that's my desire, is to help somebody grow in their faith, because that's what we're supposed to do. Right?
Every story is a God story. You just got to use it wisely.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said that either, but it's true.
Well, we said it because we're being filled with this Spirit, and we're letting this Spirit lead us and tell us what to say.
Correct.
Which is something that we always do.
Of course.
So actually, what I wanted to do today was we do want to talk about perspectives, because we do know that perspectives is a huge thing, and everybody has one, and everybody has a different one. That's something that we really have focused on for the past year, but kind of wanted to do a little interview. And so, Janice, I want to interview you.
Bring it.
All right. Well, I want to first of all see what is your so in the last, tell us your story. Tell us a little bit about your story, Janice.
Okay. Well, my story is God's story through me. Sometimes I state the obvious. That makes me feel better. Well, I came to know God when I was 18. I was a very depressed, isolated teenager, didn't have any friends, and I was actually contemplating killing myself. And I knew I was going to. And so I had prayed to God one night, and I said, God, if you're real, I've heard of you, if you're real, could you please possibly, actually yesterday preferably, send me a friend that can teach me about you, that could just help me understand more about this love that I keep hearing about but never experienced. And I honestly didn't ever think that I would get a response, because I didn't feel worthy enough of it. And I went to school the next day knowing that, God, if you don't do this, I am going to make a plan, and it's going to happen. And I was scared. And but I was in the library the next day. It was the end of the year. I was about to graduate in a month, and everybody had all their schoolwork done. I had nothing to do, so I was just basically sitting there trying to pretend that I actually had things to do, and so that nobody would talk to me, because anytime anybody would talk to me, It would be ridicule. It would be coming home with Post-its falling off the back of my shirt saying kill yourself, or it would just be like horrible, and that didn't help my self-esteem at all either. But anyway, I was in the library and I saw across the room there was a girl I never met before, and her class was leaving the library and I was over at my table, and she was kind of like in between, right? But I see her looking over, like making a conscious decision. I can see her making a decision, and she decided not to follow her class, and she came over to my table and said, "Hey, can I sit with you?" And I said, "Well, sure, it's a free country," because that's, what the world taught me how to respond. You don't have to respond nicely, you just have to respond, And long story short, she's like, "Can I be your friend?" And I'm like, "If you want." And she's like, "Now that we're friends, do you want to go with me to an after-school program?" And I'm like, "Well, what's this program?" She's like, "It's for kids like us who want to learn more about Jesus." And can you imagine? I started to bawl. And I was like, I literally just prayed about this last night. And she looks at me and she reaches over and she holds my hand. She's like, "I know why I was sent here." And so she was one of the most patient people I've ever experienced up to that point, because I was a hot mess. Like, I grew up in a home that swore a lot, that just didn't care about as many things as you would think families are supposed to care about. I'd never been brought up in a relationship with God, even though I knew of him. It was, oh, you can choose for yourself when you're older. And that's what my parents thought that they were doing for me. And but I still didn't have anybody to teach me anything. And so this girl, not only did I have a friend after graduation, she did go away to college, but she always, every time she was home, be like, "Hey, let's hang out." Or like up until we graduated, she was hanging out with me almost every day of every week. She invited me to her church. She invited me, got me involved, and she helped me be like, "So I want to go at your pace. Like, I don't want to force this on you. And like, do you think you're ready to accept Jesus into your heart?" And I was like, "Yes, I need him. I need him." And so I guess fast forward, that was the beginning of something new I did not know, because I never expected to live after high school. I always felt like I was on borrowed time, because the world and my emotions and my feelings and everything I added to my own insecurities made it seem like I don't need life, like I'm just here until I die. But that was my perspective my whole life. I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know my purpose. But I knew that God had a calling on my life, and I didn't know what it was. And so I don't think I really truly understood it until I met you. And it just started with like, "Hey, I have the time. I love the Lord. How can I help?"
So tell us, that was only a year ago.
That was. There's a lot of stuff that happened in between.
Well, tell us some of the stuff that happened in between. So back in when you had this friendship,
Mm-hmm.
would you say that you continued to live for the Lord?
I did, to a point. I had a huge secret on my heart that I hadn't told anybody, which is why I had added all these insecurities to myself, is that I got lost in not gender confusion, but like orientation confusion, like experimentation thoughts. And I felt like when I read Luke chapter 8, it said everything that that is hidden will come out into the light. And I felt like, okay, well, these are my new friends. These are my new people. Like, Jesus, these are your people, and you love me, so I can be open about this, right? Because I don't know how to come out of it. Like, I've never done anything, but like, I don't know how to change the thought. And so I trusted one person, not this friend, but one person that I had met there, and it was an older lady, and she had come from a background of a lot of abuse and things like that. But long story short, I had been hanging out. I was 19. I was hanging out with the middle schoolers, trying to learn along with them, because I was like, well, I need this too, you know. And she thought that because of my history with abuse, experiencing abuse like she had, she thought that I was going to then portray it onto these kids. And so she spread it like wildfire through the church. And before I knew it, I had hugs, I had love, I had all the stuff that I thought I was missing. But then they were like, yeah, we don't really want you here anymore. And I was like, just because I have a thought that I don't know how to get rid of, you know? And so I didn't have any spiritual guidance from then on. And I kind of pushed away this friend because my friend brought me there. It wasn't her fault, and she never, ever, like, didn't want to talk to me. But I had pushed her away because I thought she was going to do that too. And so, did I live for the Lord? I actually did. I struggled so long with, how do I get from here to here? How do I get from point A to point B? Because I knew that I couldn't be what I thought I was supposed to be, what the world told me I could participate in. I knew I couldn't be both a Christian and serve God and follow my own desires. But I also had no spiritual guidance. So I pushed everybody away, and I was a Lone Ranger studier. For 5 years, I would go to experimenting at different churches, trying to find a place I fit. And I didn't really find anywhere, because everybody has their own opinions and perspective of how you should live your life. So I just stayed at home and I worshiped. I listened to worship music, nothing but worship music. And I got rid of all the bad radio stations. I stopped watching bad movies. I used to think horror movies were funny because they just make horrible decisions. And like, I just stopped watching that stuff. I was like, God, I still know that you saved me for a reason. I don't know what it is.
So, I think, well, I know I have personally experienced some church hurt. I don't know if anybody can relate. I bet you probably can. But I think the realization that the church is full of sinful people, and they're going to make decisions and they're going to make choices based off of what they want, their desires. And if we are spirit-led and we know who the true authority of our life is, then we should only be following him and not following anybody else. But can you speak to the fact of community? What do you think about community? Like, when you get involved with people who are Christ-like, or who have maybe have viewpoints and like you have, but maybe who don't. Like, I mean, we're talking, this is the general theme is perspective, you know? So if you are in the community of believers, or how does that influence you, and how has that influenced you over the past year? Or
Glad you asked. Actually, so like for many years after that, I tried to find a place I fit And so I was like, I guess not in denial per se, but like I didn't want to get involved in churches because I was scared. But when I got to the point of, I think maybe it was 10 years ago, I was like, you know what, it's time to put roots down. It's time to get over my fear. God was calling me to something higher, something bigger, and I didn't quite know how to talk to people because I had never been a social butterfly. But I think he expanded that because now I can't be quiet. But I got involved in a church, and just to be involved in a community where not only, you know, did Jesus' people love me, they accepted me, they supported me, they encouraged me, and it was such a different perspective than what I had started off as a new believer, you know. And new believers are very vulnerable because it can make or break them. And I was glad that God never stopped seeking me and never stopped finding me. And as I grew out of one church, I did ultimately get distracted by the world again. And I kind of felt like the prodigal son, you know, like, oh, I'm going to do my thing now. I still had God in my mind. I still had the Spirit whispering things to me like, I don't think that's a great idea, but... And I ended up in a marriage that I knew I was not supposed to go into. It was not ordained by God. I went completely the opposite way because I was like, you know what? I don't feel like I deserve happiness. I don't deserve joy. And I think that was also...
Can we back up 1 second?
Yes.
So not only could we have the feelings I don't think I deserve, but also the feelings of it's just easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it's just easier to follow the world and not follow God and not follow his call on your life because, I mean, let's be honest, the Christian life is hard. It is hard because it's dying to yourself and knowing that you are not in control of your own life. You were bought with a high price, right?
More precious than rubies.
Yeah.
Price, possession, chosen, accepted, ordained, attained. I don't even know what I'm doing right now.
You're naming off all the characteristics that God is has given us, and all the characteristics of God, honestly. Like, and if we think about it, if you think about all of the characteristics of God and the characteristics, and we are created in his image, can you imagine if you partner with him, you actually have all of those characteristics yourself. But
Untapped
you have
potential.
but you have to partner with him, and then you become unstoppable. And because if you can shut out the world, because we've had to definitely do that, just shut out the world and be like, you know what? I'm just going to go with what God has told me to do. And I know that I'm created in his image, and he has a plan for me, and that's what I'm going to follow. But you have to be strong enough to shut the world out because it's hard. But it's incredible when you do, but the world will definitely tell you you're crazy. But are you crazy or are you called? So, I mean, I know plenty of times, and even right now, people will tell me I'm crazy. And I'm like, that's okay. I like to be crazy. I'm crazy for Jesus. I'm one of those Jesus-loving crazy people. And, yeah, I mean, when we're talking about community, I think what I love to learn to know about community is we have a choice in everything that we do. And I think that sometimes we forget the choices that we have because we're so caught up in what the world thinks of us, or what the world tells us that we're supposed to do, or what their expectations of us are. But ultimately, there's always a choice. And the choice for me 14 years ago was to surround myself with godly people, with people who are going to encourage me, lift me up, and who are going to love me and love my daughter the way that we needed to be loved, the way that Christ loved us. Show us unconditional love so that I can learn how to do that to my own child, because being a mom was my first calling. And I think that just being okay with shutting the world out. There were plenty of times where people tried to tell me what I should do with my child. Or like, oh, well, she's not listening to you. You should do this with her, and you should do this. And I'm like, good talk. I'm going to ask God what I should do. And I always asked him, and I'm so thankful, because she's an amazing young lady today. She'd be so embarrassed right now.
She's used to it.
She is used to it. Nothing I do could probably scare her or whatever, because she's
never surprised.
Yeah, she's not surprised. She's like, okay, yeah, Mom. That's Mom. And I mean, it was always like that. I always was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go. You have to kind of get to know like who you can trust and who you can like share things with, who you can ask advice from. And then the thing that I had to start to learn is, okay, God, this person told me this, but I don't really like what they said. But if there's something that you needed me to hear in that, can you share that with me? Can you tell me what you need me to hear? Mm-hmm. Because I don't want to hear any of it. I don't like people telling me what to do. I don't like any of that stuff. But God, I'm just going to listen to you. I'm not going to listen to anybody else, just you. So if you want me to hear something, tell me in your own words. Tell me what you want me to hear. Has there been moments like that in your life?
Every day. I think ever since I fully surrendered, which probably was about a year ago, I finally, for like 10 years, I was scared to get baptized, like submersion baptized, because I never learned how to swim because I had ear problems, whatever. Anyway, long story short, I don't like water. Like, I'm lucky I take a shower, you know. I'm in and out if I don't have to be in there. And so I was scared to do it. And then the Spirit was like, okay, well, you've been a Christian or you've proclaimed to be a Christian for about 10 years. I want you to be uncomfortable, like, because I'm trying to grow you through this. And so I signed up for baptism, even though I knew that I didn't want to do it. I mean, I wanted to do it, but not with the water. And so there's no other way, really. And so I signed up, and I was so nervous, but once I came out from that water, the cold water, I mean, it was summer, but it was really cold water, I knew that I was alive. I knew that it's only God from now on. Like, and over this past year, I've had a lot of thoughts, and like, I didn't even know that people had perspectives. Like, I was like, what? I thought those were opinions or advice or something, you know? And I knew that there was a new life, a new chapter of my life that was occurring, and it's only been God ever since. So over the past year, like, I've learned to deny myself and my own thoughts and my own feelings, holding those thoughts captive and guarding my heart, and only trusting the people I know that I can trust, because those people will show you their true colors. And I always keep in mind, obviously, that I'm a sinner. I know that everybody is a sinner, so we have to give grace to those people who do think that they're representing well, because maybe they do have great intentions. But God, when he calls us to something, he calls us to something that doesn't always make sense in the moment. I too, when I had met you, had just quit my worldly job, but it had more to do with toxicity, and I was like, my spirit was just like, no, I'm not going back. It was like, I've been asking you to leave for a long time. Like, you need to go now. because if you stay, you're going to miss what I have. And I didn't know what to do. But then, then God said, I want you to do a part-time job, 20 hours a week. And I'm like, God, that doesn't make sense. That really doesn't make sense. Like, I need to survive. Like, I can't live off of 20 hours a week. And yet, as I obeyed, I saw God's provision. I saw that I built connections with the people that I worked with, but also outside of that connection through working with the ministry. And I realized why God had me do that, because we could not build something for him if I was too focused on something else that wasn't my calling. And but I had seen God stretch my dollar too with that job. I should not have been able to survive a year on 20 hours a week, and yet I did. And I still, to this day, can't tell you how, but he made it work. And not that long ago, a few months ago, he asked something bigger of me, which isn't surprising if you know God. I want you to quit your job. What? Say what, God? Are you sure about that? How am I going to make a living? And he's like, I'm calling you into full-time ministry, and I will supply. And now I have clients that are stable, and that was, 2 months ago, 3 months ago? And God has provided every client, and I get to do what I love to do, which is to serve God. I get to do things I didn't even know I was good at. But obedience is key to the blessing. Was that even a question?
I don't even know, honestly. But it leads into everything that we want to discuss anyway. But I mean, let's back up a little bit, because God asking us questions or asking us to do things, we have to be willing to be uncomfortable. He doesn't call us to be comfortable. He doesn't promise us comfort. He promises to be with us. But for me, when he called me out of I remember having a prayer, like when I was working in my worldly job, and I said, God, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, why do you have me working in a restaurant? Like, here I am, all this worldly stuff, right? I have my master's degree, I have all of this stuff, and you have me working at a restaurant? I don't want to work at a restaurant anymore. And he's like, but Melissa, what's the original call that I put on your life? What did I tell you to do right now? Like, because that's what you should be worried about. You're not worried about what the job is. That's not your identity. That's not who you are. Like, your first call is to be a mom. And the only way that you can do this is for this job to afford you the ability to be the mom that I've created you to be, for it to give you the ability to be flexible so that you can be available to your daughter when she needs you. So it was just a lot of adaptability, a lot of I had to really like I said before, be okay with the world telling me I'm crazy. Like, you're giving up. Like, you went to school for this. You went to school for healthcare, and you have your master's degree, and you're just giving it all up so that you can just be a server. And I'm like, but that has nothing to do with it. Actually, I'm giving it all up because my daughter is worth more than that. And that's not who I am. I'm not just a server. I'm a mom. But I think in that also, in that identity role as a mom, that's not who I am, right? Like I'm a child of God. Like I'm following Christ. I'm following what He has for me. And in this season, I'm a mom, and I'm full time a mom, and that's what I need to do. So when He called me out of it, He didn't call me to start something new. Like when I started this ministry, that's not something new. It's always been evolving. It's like a gradual like ladder, like focusing on the end goal. Like he had me not focus on the end goal, like always sharing my testimony, always sharing what I was doing. And so He just closed that chapter and opened up a new one. And so I closed that chapter because He told me when I said, God, I don't want to do this anymore. And He said, well, that's a good talk. Thank you for sharing that with me, Melissa. But you're going to keep doing this. You're going to be content with where I have you. And when the time is right, I will move you into the next phase. So I think He was slowly phasing me into the next phase. And so a year ago when I quit the restaurant, and I was like, okay, but God, I don't have a plan. I don't know what to do. Like, are you sure this is what you want me to do? And He's like, I have a plan. I have a plan. Just trust me. Follow me. And so then I started working for the state. And that was an amazing job. And then the state job ended 6 months after. And I was like, okay, well, now what am I going to do? And I remember the phone call with the woman I was working for, and she was like, but we really love you, because I'm a caregiver. She's like, but we really love you, and my husband loves you, and that you guys have such an amazing connection. Okay, so here's God working all the way through that story, because He is an incredible man and has taught me so much spiritual stuff in the last year, that she was like, but I just can't afford to pay you like 40 hours a week. But we want to keep you, and Melissa, you can do it. You can do this. I can afford to pay you 10 hours a week. And I was like, okay, that's not gonna work. I'm like, okay, well but in that I knew like God had a plan, and I was like, okay. I'm like, okay, we'll make this work. We're gonna make this work. I don't know how, but we're gonna make it work. And she's like, really? And she's like, well, I can help you. I can help you with starting your own business and all of this stuff. I can help you with that. And I was like, okay, I'm not worried about it. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna stay with you. And from that, like, I gained another client. And so from that, I gained more clients. And I was like, okay, well, then this is exactly where God has me. And so then I convinced you to do the same. But tell us how hard it was.
Oh, Lordy.
Tell us the exact, like, how hard was it to be like,
Well, I'm very, like, I'll be honest, I was not for it. I was like, no, that doesn't work. I was scared to take that leap of faith, for sure. I knew that I was starting to feel dissatisfied, because I too went to school and I had the associates and the bachelors, and I had a job that I knew how to do, and I was dedicated to doing it, and I knew that God was calling me out, and he put that inkling in, that little nudge in my soul, and He's like, yeah, I'm gonna make you uncomfortable here. And so I did start feeling uncomfortable in my own workplace, something that I knew that I had done for years, 15, 20 years. And He's like, yeah, you need to prepare yourself, because I'm about to take you somewhere you don't want to go. And we were getting a lot more inquiries about like how we can expand not just the business, but like the community and connections and whatever. And your schedule was already really, really packed. And there's just, I was like, okay, And I knew that God was calling me out. But anyway, I was praying about it for 4 or 5 months. And I'm like, okay, God, is now the time I leave? Is now the time I leave? Because I was prepared to leave, but I wanted to do it my way. And I was getting ahead of God. And he's like, no, it's not time yet. Not time yet. But when the time did come, I was like, ooh, are you sure? You know, we always change our mind, right? Like, we have the intention of following God, but then sometimes we're like, ooh, can I take that back? And so, I don't know. If I didn't have accountability and we hadn't been praying for all the stuff, I would not have done what I know he asked me to do. But then I did it. But it was very hard.
And so tell us how you're feeling about this now, because
Well, now I see the blessing of it. I see that I don't just get to serve other people. They also get to be a blessing to me. And when there's like a job or something that I'm like not sure that I would want to do, I'm just like, okay, it's time to be uncomfortable. But I know that by doing this, I'm going to gain something. I'm going to gain a perspective I didn't know. I'm going to meet somebody that I wouldn't have connected with. And it's okay to be uncomfortable because this is not our home. We are eternal beings meant for heaven. And, like, yes, we do have to survive here. I won't deny that. But I'm prepared to be content with much or little. And so it's not about me anymore. It's about what God wants. And sometimes his thoughts and his ways are definitely not mine.
So I think at our core, we love to tell people that we are Jesus in disguise.
Yes.
So tell me what Jesus in disguise means to you.
Well, when it first came to me, like when you first said it, I was like, what does that even mean? Like, Jesus in disguise. But I've come to realize that Jesus in disguise is like, how do you represent the God who created you, saved you, and formed you in your mother's womb? Like, if you follow Jesus and you love him and what he has done for you, you can't help but have that want to follow him, you know? And when we go out and we represent him in everything we do, whether it's a smile to somebody or a hello or an introduction, it could be something as simple as like, did you know that you're chosen by God to be here today? Like, those are the moments that when I was the lone teenager, like desperate for somebody to care and love, those were the moments that were far and in between for me. And those are the moments that when I see in other people, like somebody sitting by themselves or not wanting to get involved, I'm like, ooh, that's my mission. You know, because those are the people that have a story they don't even know they're a part of. And I'm one of those.
So one of the most awesome things is that when we do accept God's calling on our life, and when we do accept people who need help or whatever they need, like, I mean, we do like organizing, we do caregiving, we do just whatever people need, anything to help somebody and their family. But it's so amazing to know that you can help a family thrive, not just survive, right? And so But the beauty of all of this is that we don't always know if they're Christian when we go into their homes, so we're not going in automatically saying, hey, Jesus sent us here, like that would be a little bit overwhelming, right? To the other person, not to us, because as soon as they say Jesus, I'm there. I'm talking all about Jesus, But I think the beauty of the whole thing is that when we, at our core, we know our mission, and our mission is to be Jesus in disguise. But other people, they don't have to know that's what we're doing. But they are going to know that we're totally different from other people, from worldly people, because we don't act the same. We don't respond the same. We don't react the same way that other people are going to react. So that's just incredible. But also what's incredible too is that, we go into these homes and pretty much all of our clients right now are Christian. That wasn't we're not going to cherry pick and be like, okay, yeah, we're only going to go into this home because, they're definitely Christian, we're going to go in everybody's home, and we're going to talk about our faith because that's what we do, but we can figure out a way to talk about it where it's not overwhelming for them, but they are going to see that we're different. So can you give an example of how, what do you do before you go into a home? If you have a brand new client and you know nothing about the client, and you go into the home, what is something that you do before you go?
Pray. I pray and I say, God, I don't know what I'm going into. I don't even know what the job is. But whatever your will is, let it be. Help me to represent you well, because I never want to misrepresent you. And give me an opportunity, if it's time, for me to speak on your behalf. I'm just going to go in, meet this person, do whatever they ask, and if they ask me a question, then you bet my mouth is opening. But I don't need to force anything on anybody. I just do what I'm sent there to do, because here I am, Lord, send me. I knew I enjoyed organizing, but I didn't realize how great I was at it until I had to do it every day.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's a good thing to talk about too, is that how often we, our gifts, our God-given gifts, become like burdens to us, and they become like, oh, I hate doing this. But tell us about some things that you've done that you just that were burdens to you before, but now you're like, wow, I'm actually really good at this. Like taking notes, for example, you love taking notes.
Yeah, well, I naturally like to write, and only God stuff, faith stuff. I can't sit and write a story, because I get caught up on, oh, this character's personality needs to match their name. That's not how life is, okay? But anyway, I would take a lot of notes, and I would be extra about it, because I am extra. And I didn't understand why or how I could take a whole page of notes for a sentence. But that's just me when I study. When I study the word, he gives me so many different thoughts at one time. And so now I'm just a quick longhander, I guess.
I just remember there's plenty of times where you're like, yeah, I just don't think I'm going to take the notes anymore. It's just not for me. I'm just not going to do that. And I'm like, well, actually, yeah, you are. Because it's what God has called you to do, and you're good at it. And I personally need it. So I need you to go back to your original call.
And I loved that accountability, because I actually really do enjoy it. I like to be nerdy. But I was trying to build, I had my own idea on how to build my own thoughts. Okay, well, I take too many notes, so maybe I just need to sit and just, soak it in, right? And then maybe it'll come out later. Who knows? But that wasn't the point. The point is that God did give us certain talents and gifts, and when we choose not to use them, when we choose not, like if we see somebody who needs help and they need a smile or they need a hello, they need anything, like it's kind of like we're not just doing it for Jesus as a representative of Jesus in disguise, but if we know we should do something and we don't do it, then that's on us. And I never want to miss something that God has for me. So when I am scared to do a job, or like if I know that it's not something I want to do, I'm like, okay, now I just do it.
Right.
Because actually, like for instance, there was somebody who wanted me to do errands, and I get nervous. I get really nervous because if something happens in my care and like there's an accident or something, I don't want to be sued for something happening to that person in my care. But actually, it's so fun. It's so fun to be able to just take somebody who needs to go somewhere, not like an Uber, but like just have quality time, you know? And that's a blessing. And if I had said no to that, I would not have such an awesome connection with a Christian man who like doesn't get to go to church. And I love to teach, so he listens to everything, you know?
Let's talk about why you didn't want to do that. Let's talk about the preconception of judgment. What were you judging in that situation? Tell us what you were judging in that situation.
What was I judging?
You were judging where the guy lived.
No, it wasn't that one.
Okay, I don't know.
But no, there was a job in an area where my parents had told me when I was young that wasn't a great area. And so I had a preconceived notion because of that area, and I was scared to go. But then I got there, and it's actually not bad. It's not a bad area. And
okay, the area is Glen Ellen. What?
Okay, word. That's funny for you, isn't it?
It's hilarious.
Yeah. But anyway, not the point. The point is yeah, I go where God sends me. That's it.
Yeah. And so one thing that we had to learn is like, don't say no. Say yes, go, and if they ask you to do something that you're not comfortable doing, then you can say no. But go and give them a chance, because 9 times out of 10, these people don't even know what they need. They don't even know. I mean, I've gone to a client's home before, and they are like, yeah, I need this organizing done. Yeah, I need this done. Like, I was helping her, this one woman, for example, I was helping her clean her house, and she had just been like in the hospital. She just had surgery, so she needed somebody to help her. And so I was like, okay. But I literally went there, and it almost felt more like a counseling session than anything. Like, she just needed somebody to talk to, but she won't admit that she needed somebody to talk to. But I think the whole time, like, I think I did 3 things for her. I think I washed her dishes, and I like threw some trash away. But most of the time was spent, like, I was sharing my testimony and her, and we were just talking about her life and stuff. And like, I just think, like, in that moment, she basically paid me to like be her counselor. Like, it was the weirdest thing, because that's not what I expected. So I guess I'm getting to, like, sometimes we don't know. These people don't even know what they need. They think they know, and then we can go and we can say, hey, well, let's try it this way. Do you think we could try a different way? You know, sometimes they just need a smile, and they just need you to be Jesus in disguise. So, like, if you understand Jesus's unconditional love for you, he created you in his image. Like, if you understand the compassion and that's our job, is to show it to other people and to show it to the world. So like it's interesting to see how people, just to be invited into people's lives and to develop relationships with these people that you would never have developed. We would never have developed relationships with them before, because we do have preconceived conceptions and preconceived notions and judgments.
I've done a lot of things this past year I never would have done. Started with baptism. And
how interesting is that you were afraid of the water when Jesus is the living water?
Right? We can laugh at me. It's okay. But no, like, I've just learned there's a lot that we don't want to do. And sometimes we have expectations. We have expectations of our own. Of like,
Right.
Okay, we want to fulfill a certain need or want or whatever, and like, how do we get there? But when a life is transformed by Jesus, our desires and our needs don't become ours anymore. They become His. And I think that's kind of what I would like to talk about. What are some expectations that you've had in your life, and how has that changed how you see the world versus the spiritual?
Well, I think that it's really about we can put expectations on ourselves, we can put expectations on other people, like we can put even expectations on our own children, like how they're supposed to act, and then we can be like, okay, well, they're not acting the correct way, so that's a reflection upon me, and it's really not, and we can start to take things personal. And so I think like putting that aside and just focusing on what your goal is, like, so I mean, I've had to drop expectations and be like, I don't know what I'm going into, but I'm going to be okay with whatever the result is, and I think that's biblical. Like, I think that just not having not knowing what an outcome is going to be is really important,
So how does that change how, like, the authority? Like, when you know who you are in Christ, how does that change your authority?
I really liked the message that who preached the message on Sunday here? Jared. I loved his message on the difference between power and authority, because I think once we know that Jesus is the authority over our own lives, but if you read it, but in Scripture, there's plenty of times where Jesus says, I'm giving my authority. You have my authority. In my name, you have my authority. And so, like, if you go in knowing your identity, that you have been created in the image of God, you can go in with the authority that Jesus has, with the authority, because He lives in you, and you're accepting that, And so I loved like the analogy between the difference between power and authority, because it's very different, to walk into a room with all the authority where people will flee, people will scatter because they know that there's something different about you, I think that is like such an incredible analogy. I love knowing the authority that I can use that authority in Jesus' name, and that is awesome.
So I guess, are there any thoughts that you audience members might have of how God has worked in your life through whether showing His authority or just like, what was the change and the transformation like for you, knowing that God can change your life?
Like, did you have a specific like worldly identity? Like, what was, if I asked you what the term identity means, what would you think it means? Like a worldly meaning, or do you think it's more of a spiritual meaning? Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Kind of.
I had no idea that God would want me to be a caregiver. I was a young woman. What would make a little 4-year-old or a 4-year-old say, I hate myself? I'm glad to say that. It led to a boy on the sidewalk who said, Miss Pat, do you know Jesus? Now, many years would pass when that happened, but that God heard me when I said, just only maybe a decade before that, God, if you can hear me, take my life. I made such a mess of it. I'm such a wretch. I was a angry young woman, but I was a seeker of truth. Born and raised in this area, Fox Valley, Geneva, St. Charles, Aurora, Batavia. But I grew up in Batavia. It was a blended family. I had an older half-brother. And I had no idea that God loved me. I really didn't. But I'm glad to be surrounded on both sides of the family. My stepdad, my brother's stepdad, my dad, and my little brothers. He was 2 years younger. I can remember hearing an accent, and it was Southern. And there was such a thing as hospitality on both sides of the family of Mom and Dad. But I couldn't but notice there was a war between Mom and Dad. But I could see where the enemy plundered our family at the same time. God prepared me to talk, to listen. Because I grew up in a generation like kids were to be silent, and listen to the directives. So I grew up under directives. Now, where I thought was really amazing was I had no idea. It was revealed as time goes on, because I would be 50 years old and born again. But I experienced church hurt even as a little girl. I walked into situations, whether with my classmate or usually by myself, that could have turned wrong, very wrong. But I was spunky, and I grew up with a lot of boys because I had brothers, and I always loved it. Graduated from high school, went into college, and this little special needs kid who was her teachers set her up for success in a place where our janitor bused us to Thursday school. And I went to Thursday school with my classmates, and it wasn't quite an amazing thing. I had a taste of church, of the Bible, from 3rd grade to about 8th grade. And I knew that it was not a fairy tale, because it was taught like straight and forward. But pride, doubt, and fear got in the way. When I'm standing in front of a canvas in college, and a Jewish art professor, Professor Sidney Larson, he was someone who really spoke to me, and I was able to continue to see what the enemy was doing and get real accustomed to the world. But I had no idea it was going to be my first time. My first time job was really the Paramount Art Center, And at 14 years of age, I was working for the Batavia Park District. We were kids that were mowing lawns and learning how to do it. And after about 7 years of working with the Paramount Art Center on a comprehensive employment training program, I tell you what, it wouldn't be long after that I'd be married, and that man that I would be married to for almost 30 years, during about 15th year, was threatening to divorce me. But all through it, I was working for outdoors, because I was a sicky kid and I was a sicky woman, but also one that was, it's people I can't stand, was my, really would run through my mind. And I may not always be right, but I'm never wrong. Hiding, I usually did a lot of hiding. But that place where working with horses, only God knew that. And he saved me over and over and over again during that time. And that was preparing me for caregiving. I loved horses, and only God knew that. And yet, I should have been dead more than once. So in the caregiving realm, I started writing down, like after my visits. And it was a family-owned business right here in Aurora. And I'm glad I did it for almost, my goodness, 13 years. And during that time, I did come to Christ in 2005. I read Corrie ten Boom's Hiding Place, and that made sense to me. I came to a place like this, and that made me, finally this makes sense. Got introduced to worship. Got involved with the worship team. Prayed. I'm always that person that I was always alone. Even though I was married, I was always a loner. And what encourages me even to today is that I got to walk the sidewalk with a dog, and it opened up an opportunity. And incidentally, the pastor that was Robbie at that time, and his wife Angie, and they had a small church, and that's how I got in. They drove me here to participate in an Alpha program and all this. So by 2012, my husband passed. But he came from a place that he hated me, and then the one threatening divorce. But I said no. I vowed to God, for better or for worse. One day he called me crazy, and he said, go to hell. And I said, he turned around and walked away from me. And I said, Scott, that's not where God wants us to go. And he stopped and he shrugged and he said, I never thought about that. These are all places I think some of us can identify with. That even though he died, before he died, and it was at the house, there were people from here, at least 3, and a family across the street, well, beside the pastor. And it would be the pastor and this young youth minister in this church that baptized me. They would visit with him. And when he took his last breath, before that point, you know, he had assured me one day, he says, hey, I want you to know that I love you. And those 3 days that you spent with me in the room, now mind you, we couldn't stay in the same room together, ever. But he said that those 3 nights that you stayed with me, he says, we had the best conversations. And all I can say is, oh, God, I was praying a lot. I was writing and journaling a lot. And with the dog, I was praying on the sidewalk. There were crime scenes in front of us that would happen. But God would show me this dog that was a runaway, and one of the kids in the neighborhood had brought it up to the porch and said, hey, there's a dog in your backyard. I can't have a dog because we already have a dog, Mama says, but she really needs help. So God works through animals, through horses, through cats, through sparrows, possums. And I've seen God glory, His glory. And when I got, my first Bible was The Message. It's like, praise God. To a place called now, in the present, my circumstances are way over my head. But I've really poured myself out. Of all things, caring for my mom and dad while I'm caregiving. But I'd only boast of the Lord. And to serve Him, all I can say is I'm so glad that I stayed in fellowship. But that's, God's got the next step, you know. This is the season of life where it's way over my head. And maybe that's, I'm going through that calling right now. I don't want to get stuck in the healthcare mountain. I just, but He takes me for real. As I pray in the sink, I've taken pictures, images. I mean, I'm terrible with technology, but I have taken images that some of these ladies, you know, I'll send them. And it's something I'm seeing that God is talking to me in that. Yeah. And I know, I get so, I mean, it's like when I open the Bible now, it just jumps out. Even though I might have a little bit of short-term memory loss or walk into a room, what was I looking for? You know, I know I'm going to head out this. But take heart. You know, God holds me by my right hand. And He says, I am the Lord your God. I'm here to help you. Do not be afraid. And I actually heard His voice. It was in May 23rd, 2010, as I woke up. In the middle of the night, the dog was right there with me. My husband was in another room. And the voice said, be not afraid. And I messed with martial arts. I was that woman who, I was a truth seeker. And really, I'm so glad He took me from what is the truth to who is the truth. And people who are not afraid to walk it out every day. And He's taken that which I'm kind of a confrontational person to begin with, but I love stories. And God wanted me to know there's such a thing as testimonies. So thank you for letting me, share a little bit about kind of an elevated view of I dig what y'all are saying. There's definitely, that's the way it does. And I think with women, and again, the demonic, hey, that's when it made sense when I came here. Because there's something terrible. The enemy attacks. Doesn't surprise me. And he wants to mess with gender, and it's like the old Adam, the way the serpent came to Adam and Eve, the first Adam. And I'm like, God, you prepared me. I never surrendered to that. But I know if I've had conversations with some pretty strange, but I think as women, or whatever our identity, we'll know what to say. And I love that you shared that. I mean, this is the stuff that I've been doing, and I'm not alone. I know I'm not. So this is what's given me a lot of encouragement. You're listening for God. You're talking to him wherever you stop, no matter what. I've stopped the car just to pray, or stop and pray for someone. So I'm not nuts. And I don't mind if somebody calls me a name. I've been called a lot of different names. Even my own parents. My mom said, I hate you. But that was, I say that. But by the time she told me that, and she was maybe a month away from passing, I was already in with her. She called me by her mother's name. And I was not offended. And I know it's encouragement, because y'all have given me encouragement. You really hit on these points where it's a journey, and it's a healing journey. And it's one that we do need to know who to go to God first, and then ask for, Lord, you know the friends to send. So I just want to encourage everyone there. And thank you so much for letting me share.
So it's interesting because not only does he know the friends to send, but he also knows the friends to remove. And as hard as it is for us to lean into that truth, that's something that we've definitely experienced in the last couple of weeks, is that not everyone is meant to go with us. And we have to be okay when God tells us what to do. Like we have to be okay with walking away. And sometimes walking away is the biggest testimony to, like that other person's life or to our life or whatever, because God is taking us to another level. Maybe they're not meant to be on that level with us. Maybe they were meant to be in that season to bring us to the level, but we have to be okay with walking away.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things that I've had to do is, just when you're about to level up, you're going to get a phone call or some kind of nudge or distraction or whatever that's going to be like, oh, I'm going to give you everything you thought you wanted over here. I'm going to ask for you to think over here when actually God's calling you over here. And it's not going to make sense to a lot of people until much later. Sometimes it doesn't even make sense to us when we're in it. But
we just have to obey.
Yeah. So I think that's what we've learned the last year is, like, whatever it is, God's got it. We can't get caught up in the details because that's his job, not ours.
And sometimes going back to like your original call, to the one who created you and knows you more than you even know yourself, and being okay that he's the only one in your life, because you do have to walk away from people, and but God will never walk away from you. And so the choice is, God, I'm walking away because I know you're over here and I want to chase you. We definitely have had to learn a lot in the past year. A lot about who we can share things with, who are our true friends, and what is a friend versus a companion? What is a friend versus an acquaintance? Because we found a lot of acquaintances, but friends, God's our friend. He's our friend. And he's the only one that's going to be with us forever.
That reminds me of, like, I know we talk about this a lot, is like Jesus, everybody loves him, obviously, or claims to love him, but like in his time, he was not accepted, he was rejected, and he was not accepted in his own hometown with his own people. And so when we face opposition, whatever kind of opposition that might be, we still have to keep in mind that we represent him and his love for everybody, even if they don't love us. And I think that was one of the turning points of my own life, is learning that yes, we do come from areas and seasons of life where we have church hurt, or we have people who hurt us, but sometimes we need to place those boundaries, and sometimes those boundaries are also ways that God protects us by removing those people that were not supposed to come with us. And so he protects us in that way. And sometimes we have to also be the ones to protect ourselves and guard our own hearts, hold those thoughts captive, and hold it up to the truth of God. Because only his word is truth, and it brings life. And so that just reminded me of that, because how often do we get called crazy for being set apart, for being different? But being different isn't a bad thing. Being different means we actually stand out, not fit in. And I, for one, have learned I'd rather be that.
Yeah, I think it's the perception of rejection, and seeing rejection as God's protection, right?
But like, a Christian life is all about like encouraging each other and learning from each other. There's a scripture that says, like, the disciple is not any better than the teacher. We're all in it together, And so, like, we can learn things from each other.
That reminds me of Jesus washing his disciples' feet. He wasn't any better. He never acted any better than his disciples or anybody that was following him. I mean, he would do that too. And I think that's what makes us stand apart, is that we're willing to be radical and different, just like Jesus was. Like, we've lost a lot of people in our own lives in the past year, but
we've gained so many more.
We have gained so many more. God's put so many amazing people in our lives in the past year and removed so many people, but us being okay with the removal of those people, it was hard. It was definitely a hard season. It still is, because we're still in the middle of it. But with our focus in knowing that he's the one in control and we are not. And I just think about, how does one get through life not being a Christian? I would like to know that. Like, how did I make it 34 years without being a Christian? I don't know. I can't even think about it now. Like, I've trained my mind on Jesus's principles and not the world's. And I'm like, I don't know how this season in my life that I'm going through now, where I don't even have like an actual home. Like, I can't even imagine if I don't even know how to think about that. Like, if I didn't know that God has a plan for me, how would I even get to the next day? I don't even know. How would I sleep at night? The one thing that God has helped me with is let me sleep through the night. Give me peace through the night, God. Please just give me peace let me sleep. I need to sleep because I still have to work. I still have to do all this other stuff. But I need peace. I need to sleep.
There's so many more stories, but
Yeah, a lot of stories. Sure.
yeah.
Do you want to use this or no?
That goes along with what you've been saying the last couple days. Is like, how do you what are you gonna choose today? You know, like we all have a choice in the matter. It's like we can only control ourselves. So, what do you choose today?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that earlier too, is that we have more choices in our lives than we even think we do, you know? Like, we choose every day. Like, are we going to choose to be bitter, or are we going to choose to be better? Right? Like, I don't know. I'm also a word nerd, and I love words. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think about that too. And I think, you know what also is that while my daughter was growing up, I used to tell her all the time, you know what? Your feelings are not real. Okay? And she'd get so mad at me. She hated that. I mean, who wants to hear that their feelings are not real, right? Like, we think our feelings are real, but what if, like, they're great indicators that something's wrong, or that we need to, like, figure out the truth or whatever, but they're not real. And so I would help her. I'd be like, okay, well, let's go back to Scripture, because that's real. That's truth. And that's what we can do. We can go back to Scripture and we can figure that out. And she's like, but, you know, like, you could be having the worst day or whatever, and your feelings are controlling how you're acting and whatever. So I always say, like, take a holy pause and figure it out, because it's not about how you're feeling. Let's figure out, you know, what does that feeling actually mean? What's the underlying issue of the reason you're feeling the way you are, you know? And especially that, she especially hated that in junior high, because that's like the worst time of anyone's life, right? Because, like, everybody tells you you're, like, horrible, you're this, you're that, you know? And it all goes back to our identity. That's not who I am. That is absolutely not who I am. So your feelings are not real. Yeah. So anyway, we want to do. Did y'all get raffle tickets?
Everybody get a number? Does anybody want to pull the numbers? Hey, Denise, do you want to pull some numbers? I already pre-shook, but you can pre-shake.
She didn't trust
just
me
one
to
for now.
do the raffle.
All right. Who's got 10? Anybody? Anybody? Well, maybe nobody got 10. We'll come back to that. And number 1. Who's number 1? Aina. Would you like... There's one secret surprise in these bags, but these bags have one of our devotionals. Or we have our team perspectives. So, come pick one. She could try. I mean, it's God ordained. Do you want to get? Okay. So there's a secret gift in there, or a devotional. Don't like to be surprised.
We've been talking lots about perspectives. So these are our perspective books. We wrote, we would pick a topic, and then we would each write on the topic, and then we put it in writing. Well, Denise put it in writing.
Well, they're blog posts that I got nerdy and compiled. 'Cause I'm a nerd. Okay. Oh, number 6. Number 6. Who's the number 6? Everything we do is nerdy. 13. Anybody at 13? So there's bags. And we do have a sign-up sheet with you can put your name and email if you want a digital copy of either one. It's up at the table. Yeah, you could have both too because we can email that. 9. Come pick a surprise. Yeah. 8. Oh, 11. Come, 11. Okay. 2. Who's number 2? Surprise! Sorry if I hurt your eardrums with my singing. 3. Who's number 3? Huh. one of them is. Four. Who's number 4? Anybody? Isn't it Abby? You have an old one. Oh, okay. Oh, number 12. Anybody have a number 12? Pretty much, I think.
Hey, look, you have 12.
No. Oh, yeah, I could see how that could happen. That's the surprise or yep. Number 5. Yeah. Was anybody not called? We're going to leave one aside for her.
And then on the inside of these books, all of them, even a little devotional, there's a QR code in our website and stuff. If you guys want that. Most of the stuff is on the website, but there's also other encouraging stuff on there too.
And some of the purple bags have journals with them too.